Sometimes a question arises, what's the main obstacle in our opening up, in our becoming free of numerous psychological issues? What is preventing us from understanding and eliminating various complexes that reside in us? What is making it difficult for us to get out of certain long-standing fears or be free of some low self-esteem and such things? Upon close examination, we realize that the obstacle is we ourselves. We are our own obstacle. When we say we are our own obstacle, what is meant is a certain image that we carry of ourselves by ourselves. You sometimes meet an elderly lady, and all she has to say is how all through her life she was victimized. There are some who complain ever since he married such and such woman, or if it's a woman, ever since she married such and such man, or it doesn't have to be marriage. You sometimes meet somebody who says, ever since he got into a certain company for a job, and unfortunately he somehow could not change his job, he stayed put in that company, but his life has been miserable. Now, as the olden days, an expression used to go, a broken record. I'm sure many of you have heard this expression. They say, many a time somebody confesses, I am a broken record. That expression may not be valid for times to come because now very few people know what a record is. We are talking about the gramophone records. Most of us here in this get together have played and enjoyed gramophone records, LP, long play, short play, big size, small size. There used to be those discs. And you and I had learned how to place the playing needle very carefully upon it. And then high quality music would come. But once in a while, some old records would have a scratch. I guess that is referred to as a broken record. Because of a certain scratch, the needle, rather than going ahead and further ahead, goes on repeating. It does two circles but comes back to where it started. In other words, that broken record, which was an expression for decades, meant somebody is saying the same thing again and again. Same tale of tears, same sorrowful confessions. And the other people have to bear with it. They know, oh, this man is coming. Now he will again talk about what he went through in 97 and how unfortunate and unlucky he was in 2010. The same story he'll repeat. Now, I don't want to drag on like this. This evening's topic is accumulated experience, how it obstructs true observation. Experience, something we had gained maybe 30 years ago, or something we gained even 30 minutes ago, is of the past. Experiences of the past leave behind typically certain residue. I added the adverb typically for in the case of certain rare few who have such great attentiveness. They live in such attention that experiences do not leave behind a residue. They enjoy something and are done with it. They suffer something and are done with it. Traditional scriptures also praise such people, saying they have no pride, they have no guilt, they do not suffer from negativities like shame, and if somebody had done some disservice to them, someone had done some injustice to them, these people do not have any vengeance. They don't have a sense of revengefulness against that other person. And if somebody had helped them a lot, somebody had done some valuable service to them, again, these one in a million are different. They do not remain beholden to those people. They do not say, oh, she did so much for me. How can I ever pay her debt back? For rest of my life, I will just listen to her, do things as per her behest or his request. So some kind of you get bound to a person, to a place, a community. No, those are all residues. This is a very tricky subject. Someone helps you a lot, and if you hastily listen to what I am talking, you will say, well, if somebody has done so much for you and then you don't remain grateful to that person, you are such an, unkind person. Gratitude, there has to be. Please note, there is a big difference between gratitude and remaining obliged, remaining beholden. There's a big difference between sincere appreciation of what somebody has done for us and always feeling a bit burdened by that help we received. And in the process, what this expression burdened means is we do not listen to others at all. This person who helped us in some way overrides everything else. This person becomes too important, and others who may come along in our life after some years do not count at all. Therefore, you, in the name of gratitude, which is not gratitude here, your judgment is clouded. Your thinking is pulled down by memories. In the name of all that which you may call gratitude, you are actually unfair to new people who come to your life, new places where you may reach. Therefore, the residues of what we may call undigested experiences. Digested, undigested are figurative expressions for this business. When you do not digest an experience, what it means is you have not fully understood what you went through. And therefore, a part of your mind says, I will sort this out later. A part of your mind being inconclusive, not deciding what happened, remains in some confusion. Therefore, it is undigested. When we say a certain experience you have completely digested, it means you have washed your plate clean. You have washed yourself clean of any burden. As I said before, neither anger with a certain person, nor any indebtedness. It's not easy. When we say, therefore, under this topic, accumulated experience, what it boils down to is the creation of a self. Like I gave first an example of somebody who has a tale of tears to tell. And she has been telling this tale of tears for last 15 years to anybody who has the time to hear her, right? So what happens is, one is the story of her sorrowful experiences. Another is those undigested experiences have left behind certain residues. Those residues have created a false self. The self, the separate self, is false, as great mystics, great illumined people have to say to us. They say, do not remain in the clutches of memories. Walk out of them. Live in the present. To be in the present is the mark of true wisdom. But most people find it extremely hard to remain in the present because a whole lot of the past seems to them to be very relevant. Therefore, they go on picking from memories. Somebody compared it with picking up from the trash can. You yourself crushed pieces of paper, some documents, some letters, some receipts, etc. You crushed them and threw them into the dustbin. But within half an hour, you say, hey, I want to check again. You search for certain papers, pick them up, again open, and maybe again throw into the dustbin. Imagine, after another 2 hours, again you become doubtful. Go and pick from the dustbin. In tradition, they call this very phenomenon a psychological phenomenon, no other than absence of vairagya, absence of detachment. But let me hasten to add, true vairagya, true detachment is necessarily born of viveka, seeing rightly, seeing the false as the false, seeing the true as the true, seeing what is lasting as truly lasting, and seeing what is so ephemeral, transitory, transient as impermanent. Nitya Anitya Viveka, they call it. How many have this actually on this earth? Most people, most of the time, are in their own fancies. So the fancies they have about the world, about this man or that lady, on one hand, and their self image on the other, keep this show, keep this tamasha going on. This is so much, therefore, related to the topic of living in images, acting as images, and relating with images of people. Krishnaji has commented at places. Do people meet each other at all? Or do images of people meet each other? I meet your image, I don't meet you. You don't meet me, you meet my image. Outwardly, we are shaking hands, smiling, laughing, sit down, have some coffee together. We hug, pose for photographs. We do everything. But what is going on inside us is constantly A is seeing not B, but certain images A has of B. And the case with B also is the same. B is not meeting A. B is meeting the images that he has of A. So images meet each other. These two individuals truly do not meet each other at all. Was it yesterday or day before? In Thane, very near Mumbai, something very terrible happened. There was some dispute about some property. The son was so angry about the father, who perhaps was not allowing him to take that part of the property. And the father was also very angry with the son for demanding what he considered was more than what should actually go to him. In the process, the son, I guess, sees the father coming in his vehicle, and the son gets so angry. The son takes out his vehicle, and even as people were watching, knowingly, deliberately, the son takes his vehicle and at high speed hits the vehicle of the father without realizing that not only the father is sitting in the father's vehicle, but behind father's vehicle there are a few people. And this car hits those people also. Some 5 or 6 people are very badly injured. Two cars are very badly damaged. I don't know what happened to the son, and the son ran away. He is at large now. The police will nab him one day. Because when the father was coming, the son did not see the father actually. The son saw an image that he had of the father. Oh, this man is coming. This man is so selfish. This man is so partial to my sister and brother and wants to throw peanuts at me. He is not giving me. The son's mind is full of negative images of his father. And the result is two expensive vehicles clashing with each other and so much of injury to people too. You and I are like that many a time. We have experiences of the past that result in formation of some images about ourselves and about others, including those so-called near and dear ones. A husband has images of his wife. He doesn't know his wife really. The wife has images of her husband. Long back she stopped seeing him as he is. Therefore, Krishnaji has made very interesting, thought-provoking statements. Can you see your wife's face in the morning as though you are seeing her for the first time? Can you see your son's face in the morning when the son says, Papa, good morning? Can you also say good morning and see him as though you are seeing your son for the first time? So, what is the significance of as though you are seeing for the first time? It means completely free of past experiences, memories. We want to actually inquire into what this accumulated experience, rising again and again as memories, does to observation. In that sense, present topic is closely related to another very profound insight of Krishnaji, where he says, analysis is paralysis. Normally, you and I, in the name of being smart and intelligent, analyze past experiences. We analyze others' behavior, our own behavior. Why I said that way that day? Why in place of no, I said yes to X or Y, and rarely sometimes the other way around? where I should have said yes, I said no. Somewhere where I should have said no, I said yes. Later we regret. As the expression goes, promise in haste, repent at leisure. Tattoo in haste, repent at leisure. You have all these wise things said, but most of those wise statements first inspire us. In 2 minutes, we completely forget them. So, why is observation obstructed by accumulated experience? You see, once the accumulated experiences are in operation, they are rising, they create the self, and the self is a certain fictitious entity. It's not valid in the present moment. Things that happened in the 90s or in the early 2000s, things that people talked about with regard to me. When did they talk about you in this way? Oh, recently. Recently means what? Oh, as recently as 2011. Oh dear, this is 2024. 13 years have passed. Why don't you just forget whatever they talked about you at that time? Easy to say, but we many a time put in effort to remember who said what and what my reaction to it was at that time, 2011. Therefore, a noisy observer rises in us. To truly observe a conflict in us, to truly observe a dilemma that we may be facing, we must be able to see it with no noise. The conflict is an issue to be resolved, I agree. But when we are trying to understand the conflict, there also, if the self in us is very noisy, very choosy, it's not choiceless awareness. It's awareness where so many choices are being made. The voice within us says quite loudly, do this, don't do that, don't do this. So there is so much of noise. Therefore, the accumulated experience is an obstruction. This is a very delicate issue. We are in no way saying your mind should totally be quiet. If your mind is totally quiet, how will you understand anything? How will you understand? In order to be free of noise, suppose you say, I don't want to think at all. If there is no thinking, then how will a certain understanding dawn? Therefore, the subtlety here is once more, let there be thinking, but let thinking play the second fiddle. Let thinking be secondary. Let perception be primary. In order that perception, the basic seeing, is primary and thoughts are secondary, we need to have some degree of freedom from accumulated experiences. We must stand on, in a manner of saying, such platform where on that platform you are nobody. If you are higher than others, greater than others, bigger than others in your perception, I am so much more senior. I am so much more knowledgeable. I am so much more rich. In some way, There is an inner noise which defines who you are as being higher or lower. Then how can you observe? So, in that other statement, analysis is paralysis. The way to understand is when you analyze, who is analyzing? I. I analyze. Who is this I? This I is the disgruntled self, is the crying baby, is the entity that seeks to take revenge. This I wants to teach lessons to these people. Oh, so if the I is a crying baby or is a vengeful entity, then that crying baby is the analyst, and the analyst is far from purity. For true observation to take place, a certain conflict, as I called it, a certain dilemma, certain something that bothers you is very much present. But you want to observe it with no other thing coming in. From a center of stillness, from a center of quietude, you want to observe or be aware of conflict, dilemma, or even fear, or even desire. In this particular wisdom, we do not hastily go to a scenario where there is no conflict, no dilemma, nothing bothering you. You are silence inside, silence outside. It is all bliss. It's easy to say that, but you don't arrive there without developing your ability to observe. So, as you notice or observe very well various conflicts or the usual tendency of wanting to choose something arises, you stay quietly aware of that tendency. You stay in a state of noticing and without saying anything, without remarking, without either rejecting something, going by some past opinion, nor accepting something. In the Vedanta literature, they have two words, ana and upadana. Ana means leaving something. I don't want this. Saying, no, I don't want this. Ana, giving up. Upadana is saying, hey, this I want. Please give me. Give me fast. I want this. There are two adjectives that go with those two. You may have heard them. Heya and upadeya. And traditionally, they have talked about in a little different way. When you realize you actually are of such nature, which is neither heya nor upadeya, neither something to be let go of, nor something to be accepted. So, who am I? I am that awareness which is not asking for anything, which is not running away from anything. And then in that scenario, there are thoughts running in the mind. There are certain operations of thought. But on a higher level, so to say, you are free from the noise of the past. So, why is this conflict around then? The conflict, the dilemma, the confusion, some kind of discomfort psychologically. It could be fear, it could be a temptation, it could be a certain irresistible desire to talk. not just talk, to go on talking. You see, sometimes some impulsive talkers. Suppose both of you and he are sitting behind and the driver is driving. Moment you started from place A till you reach the place B, this impulsive talker sitting next to you goes on and on and on and on. First you reply, and you get so tired. You just say, hmm. You get tired of saying, also. You look at him and then saying, this is my prarabdha. This person is not letting me travel this 1 hour journey or 2 hours journey in certain quietude. A person goes on talking. Then, if that urge is in us to talk, to analyze, to come to an opinion, to close the file quickly, that's one of the weaknesses people have. They themselves come somewhere with great eagerness, but within 2 minutes they want to finish everything and go. These are all problems of an unsteady, unwise, childish mind. Accumulated experiences create the conditioned self, and the conditioned self right away is not qualified to understand anything properly, to understand anything as it is. Because this conditioned self, known to one or unknown to one, has very clear biases. When you have very firm biases, maybe you like blue and do not like red. Some poor man comes in a blue shirt, you love him. And another person comes in a red shirt without your knowing also. It is said in modern neurology, modern psychology, that normally a human being does not know how his own brain is acting. A man does not know. Let me put it this way, 90% of what the brain is doing at that time. 10% he is aware of. But 90% is happening in the brain, and that forcibly takes your thinking process from one side to the other. There are instances when you and I find ourselves announcing a decision suddenly and leave alone others. It's a surprise to us ourselves. 2 minutes back, we had not thought of announcing that decision. But 2 minutes have passed, and we then make a decision. A lot of people fall for temptations like that. 2 minutes back, they would have said, I have decided not to watch any movie for the rest of my life. I've said goodbye to movies. But the friends pursue it. That's very nice of you to stop watching movies, but start it in 2025, no? Only 4 months are left. And you don't know what happens to you. Suddenly, as though something goes inside your brain, and without even you are being fully aware, you say to your friends, right, I will start it from January 2025. Come, I am joining you. Let's go to the movie. You don't even have to tell me which movie. I'm just coming with you. Come on, he goes. Lot of people have this impulsive behavior because the noise in their mind. Therefore, friends, all I can say about this topic is through a certain unbiased observation, we can ensure that many ideas we had about ourselves, which are the results of accumulated experiences, they drop away. Who am I? They say The best answer to who am I is when there is no answer. Not to answer at all, not out of willpower, but thanks to your mature deliberations, mature thinking, you have seen how inappropriate it is to call yourself a coward or a brave man, to call yourself a lucky or unlucky person. Any judgment you make about yourself, on yourself, is likely to be false because it used only a little bit of information. There is so much of other information. Therefore, to stay in a state of non-judgmental perception is the way for true observation to take place, in which or through which observation the conflicts and contradictions subside in a very quiet inner change. Thus, experienced or rather accumulated experiences form the ego, form the self. They strengthen the self, and therefore, we would say these memories are a big nuisance, a big distraction in proper observation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Harshad sir, would you please like to say something on this? Harshad sir.
Yes. Are you able to hear?
Yeah.
My voice? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Swamiji. This is a very, very interesting topic about the knowledge, the experience means knowledge. And as we grow old, we gather more and more knowledge. When we are born, we're very young, we don't have much knowledge, much experience. And so generally we see that the children, they see things in a different way. They are excited when they see a butterfly or something, a flower. But when these children who see everything so with amazing beauty, that goes away when they go to school and college and university, and then the mind gets filled up with knowledge, with experience, and then that experience keeps on repeating. And even when we look at a tree or a human being, we don't see clearly, but we see through the knowledge which we have got. So, this is a very, very important topic to, if a person can really come to that state when this knowledge, which may be there, but it is not interfering with seeing a tree or a human being, then there is a real beauty, love, a strange freshness exists. And that is what I think Krishnaji was trying to awaken, a different kind of seeing or looking, listening, learning, not through the old mind, but to have a fresh mind every day, not just one day. And how that can happen? And that can happen only when we become very curious to first recognize that, yes, knowledge is interfering and there is no beauty in that. But when we become very curious and begin to look how these thoughts and feelings are forming through, not through thinking, but a different dimension called awareness, then that awareness is the real freedom, if it really happens in our life. And then we may have knowledge, but that knowledge doesn't interfere in looking at everything. And that is the real freedom. So I know there's one girl, little girl, and she was blind from birth. And then after a few years, when she was about 4 or 5 years old, operation was done on her eyes and she got a new eye. And then when that bandage was removed and she looked at everything with a strange look and she was smiling. She saw her mother's face for the first time. And that video, it tells us what it means to really look at a flower or a star or a bird as if for the first time. And that, even though we may be looking at a flower every day, but is it possible to look every time as if we are looking for the first time? And when that question becomes very important, then the real journey becomes. And that real journey, I feel, is the inner journey, where we become very curious about everything, how this knowledge is uh, interfering in looking at everything. Uh, and sometimes people go through very beautiful experiences. Like in the commentaries on living, there's one professor and they were discussing something about communism or Christianity. And then suddenly, while they were having this discussion, the professor began to see the image of Buddha. And only he saw it, but his friends were very busy talking. And so that image of Buddha remained with this professor. And then the professor left the meeting and he saw that the image is going ahead of him. And when he came again to that meeting, again he saw the Buddha. And then for a few days after that, he felt very, very happy, very creative. But then every time he was bringing that vision which he had of Buddha intentionally to feel that kind of beauty. And then when you do it again and again, something which was very beautiful, but you try to bring it again and again, then that experience of freshness goes away. And then this professor came to Krishnamurti and wanted to know what was behind this experience, whether it was very genuine experience or it was something illusion. And then Krishnaji says that now you have got attached to that experience. And then it has now become a very dead memory. And so it has no meaning. So this is what happens even when we have beautiful experience. But if we keep on remembering it, then that it becomes very stale. And similarly, one another person had an experience in which the whole past was wiped out and he saw everything as if for the first time, the flowers and everything on the shops, everything written. and his mind was so quiet, and he listened to some music, and it was so interesting to listen with that silence of the mind. And then it went on for about 2 hours. And then when he came back to his house, the whole thing was gone. And then he wanted to get back that experience again. And then he came to Krishnaji to discuss. And Krishnaji says, that experience came to you when you were not seeking for it. But now you are become a prisoner of that experience. And so there is more conflict in you because the daily life is very boring and a lot of conflict. And that experience was something very beautiful. So there is a conflict between what he experienced and what now he wants to experience again. So knowledge, I think we all have. But the question is it possible that this knowledge doesn't interfere while looking at a person or a flower or a tree or a traffic? And that can happen when this question becomes very important and the journey as it deepens within oneself, then it may happen that without trying to look, without knowledge, it happens naturally. It may become even your nature to look at without this knowledge interfering. So one can look at a flower and one can really look the beauty of it. But if somebody asks you when you are looking like that, somebody asks you, what is the name of that flower? And then you say, yes, it is a rose flower. So that knowledge is there, but while looking, that knowledge is not interfering because you have been very, very curious to look at your own mind, your own thoughts and feelings. And when you are able to look at the thoughts and feelings as they are arising, not later on, not analyzing it after something has happened, like anger. When anger is arising, if a person is very alert, can look at the beginning of the anger. And that looking, it indicates that there is that awareness, which is not anger, looks at the anger, and the anger goes away. So the real thing is that awakening of that awareness, which is not thinking, which is not feeling, but it is in a different dimension. And Krishnamurti's teachings are about awakening that intelligence or awareness which can see everything without the past, without the knowledge of the past. And this is really possible for human beings, even if they have got a lot of knowledge. That knowledge will not interfere when that inner journey of looking at oneself as one is, not trying to be free from our own problems, not saying that I should not be angry or I should not be jealous or I should not have this or that, but looking at what is as it is unfolding. So when a person is able to look at what is as it is while it is unfolding, then there is no time, there is no psychological time involved in that. There is no division between the observer and the observed, no division between the analyzer and the analyzed, and so on. So this can become a reality if we give our whole attention, and this becomes the most important thing in our life, not to become somebody important, not to earn a lot of money, not to become famous, not to have power, not to become respectable, but really curiously looking at oneself. Maybe initially it may be tiring, but if a person doesn't give up, then that looking becomes effortless. That is why Krishnaji say the real thing is to look at what is without effort. So this is very few people, I think, may be interested. And some people like to take drugs to experience something new. I have some friends on Facebook, and they say how beautiful when they are under the effect of the drug. But then, if the drug goes away, then you come back to the normal life. And then the conflict begins between what was that beautiful thing under the effect of drug and the real conflict in the daily life. So I think without taking drugs, being very curious to look not through thinking, because analyzing, and that it is very tiring process. But when this awareness, which is not thinking, can look at thinking moves beautifully without any creating division between the thinker and thought. So this is real beauty. And Krishnaji was talking about that real beauty. Because then we feel that the real treasure is not outside. The real treasure is buried within us. But around this treasure, there are many snakes like fear, anger, and we have to really understand all that problems. And when we are able to tame these snakes which are within us in the form of anger, fear, jealousy, loneliness, boredom, only then we can touch the treasure, and then there is no need to go anywhere. There is no need to read anything, but the reading can go on within oneself. And that is the real beauty of living. Okay, I have said enough thing right now. Thank you.
Dinesh Waghmare, please. Dinesh Waghmare.
Are you able to hear my voice?
Very well, very well.
Today, first of all, thank you, Harshad sir and Swamiji. I've heard both the aspects which said by Swamiji and Harshad sir. But today time is less, so I'm cutting short my statement. First of all, let us see what JK has to say on this. Very short. So I say, is there a state of mind that is beyond experience, which is awake, which is so enlightened, it doesn't depend on any stimuli? This means the mind is so intelligent that is watching its reactions, which go on all the time. This is important, which go on all the time, because we can't live without reactions. This statement one has to understand. We can't live without reactions. So awake, that not a thing that goes by or makes you go to sleep. A mind that is awake has nothing to learn except in the technological field, because learning there implies accumulation. This is also important. A mind that has accumulated psychologically is a sleepy mind, a dragged mind. So when you insult me, can I be so watchful that no trace of it remains, neither prejudice nor antagonism against you, nor when you flatter me? Watch it so that it is finished, which Swamiji has also said about the go through the experience truly. At the moment of insult or flattery, it is over. Now, what are my views on this? My views are, JK has clearly said that this business of clear seeing without past memories and issues of image making, which Swamiji has pointed out very in a detailed way or exhaustive way, is limited to psychological matter. Now in world, as Swamiji said, that most of the people are engaged in their fancies. Out of the others, all the leaders know the consequences of war. Means they are having the perception of the consequences, but they do not bother. We don't think that Putin or Zelensky don't have the consequences, know the consequences of war. They are seeing it, but still they don't bother. So we see in world today, even Duryodhan said, I know dharma, adharma and all the consequences, but my tendency is not allow me to follow dharma. So the use of clear perception sphere is very limited. As far as afterwards thought has to come into picture. This is very clear. So the use of clear perception sphere is very limited, as afterwards thought has to come into picture, and thought is very limited. Yes, people like us who are really interested in intelligent mind can go for it. It is also clear that one has to tackle the situation with whatever experiences he has, whether it is technological or psychological. So this aspect also to be considered, the limitations of this topic today. If we see that totally the JK's teaching, then the things are different. But if we say this as a divided way, in a fragmented way, then its limitations are there, which also we have to consider. What Swamiji has to say on this.
Please
Thank you.
repeat the last sentence. You said limitations have to be considered. Limitations of what?
See, what I mean to say,
Hmm.
first you are saying that there should be clear perception,
Hmm.
and in that there should not be any interference of your past. Fine.
Yeah.
I am having clear perception. I am keeping aside my thoughts. But later on, what will happen? Thought has to come into picture, either to solve the issue or to act on it. Thought has to come into picture.
Right.
Or suppose I am directly acting, perception is action. It means my thought is complete there. When there is a thought, thought is complete, the action is immediate. No time is involved. But when I don't know anything, suppose, then the time becomes infinite. And when I say that you ask me that what is the distance of Indore to Timbuktu or say Nepal, then I had to find out. So there the time is in between. So this first of all, clear perception is there, but afterward thought has to come into picture. And thought has to come into picture means thought itself has got limitations. And we have seen that clearly JK says that this is not limited to, this is only limited to psychological domain only, not to the your technological domain, where learning means accumulation. So accumulation will always be there. And in some cases, like Mrs. or say any other relationship issues, you may have clear perception, but still you have to act considering the many other aspects. So the things becomes very limited. And even if we see the leaders are today, they know everything, consequences of war and all that, but they don't bother. As Duryodhan has not bothered. Krishna said that I have gone to the people door to door, but nobody listened to me. So this is the situation. In our case also, when thought comes into picture, it is also a limited issue for us. So what is the use of discussing such in a fragmented way? If we discuss this issue in a fragmented way, it doesn't have any significance or any importance. That's what I feel. What are your views on this?
Sometime I wonder, you are asking a question or giving answers and explanations. Sometime
No,
I
I am
wonder.
asking see, I am putting my views. I am asking Swamiji to put his views.
Yeah.
No,
So,
but
yeah.
still giving more views about that.
No, that's he is trying to present the case more clearly. So he gives more dimensions. Use of thought, technically speaking, the functional thought is most welcome. Functional thought means not only technological, physical outside, but even to know our own tendencies, our own tastes. My favorite example is an uncle is visiting me tomorrow, to remember that this uncle likes filter coffee, and but he doesn't like Carnatic music. He does not like bouquets to be kept near because he has got some allergy to flowers. So these are not like clock or driving a vehicle. These are something very personal about that particular uncle. Even that may be kept in mind. That is functional. What is psychological is where our reputation, my prestige, my self-worth, etc. are challenged. Suppose tomorrow my uncle is coming to meet me for an hour, he will have coffee with me, and then suddenly I start fearing. This uncle has a very nasty habit of poking me. He will remind me how I should have stood first in high school when long back I was at high school, and because of my laziness, I did not work hard. I stood fifth or sixth in the school, and he'll poke me. I don't like this. So certain likes and dislikes, and we start burning. That kind of interference is going to create a problem. But the teachings, now I come to my main point, main aspect of the answer. The teachings never permit us to visualize suddenly overnight having a free mind. This is an ongoing process. As you surely know well, Krishnamurti was very averse to the idea of this man is liberated. To call somebody liberated or to think of yourself as liberated, emancipated, was not at all acceptable to Krishnamurti. He always said, be tentative, be tentative. Neither be in a hurry to say, I think I am there now. That would be one blunder, nor to complain and feel sad, like we Hindus would say, I don't know how many more lives I would need to get clarity. So neither to complain about some very undesirable length of time that may be required for coming out of the psychological mess, nor to build castles in the air. I think I am very close to the so-called freedom, etc. Krishnaji has said, forget about that time period. Be watchful of whatever drama the mind is trying to build. So that is to be applied here also. With tremendous patience with ourselves, we notice certain concern about our prestige, let us say, rises. Certain fear rises that this uncle may talk something nasty. The uncle may suddenly talk about my divorced wife and say, how is your second wife now? I'm just constructing, I don't have one. Constructing an example. Now, I may not like somebody to talk about my first wife whom I divorced 3 years ago, and now I have a second wife for last 1 year. This uncle pokes. So suppose what uncle does is his uncle's business. But for me to get agitated, for me to get agitated before even he has stepped into my house. So this is going on. This is a psychological phenomenon. All that the teaching say is notice it, and notice it from a center where there is no agitation. What is going on is agitation, but you are watching it without agitation inside. So it's a very tricky thing. It's not a very idealized scenario of instantly agitation vanishes. The agitation is up in the air and it's heating me up in a sense. So, still, thanks to a certain understanding you and I derive in these discussions, there is a certain noticing and without evaluating ourselves. I think I am far better now in observation. That's also, if such a thing comes, notice it. Yeah, I am very fond of evaluating myself. That's another circus I keep doing, unnecessary circus. Like that, one must enjoy one's own follies. So it's been interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pradeep ji, Pradeep ji, Pradeep ji.
I think it is audible. I am audible.
Yeah, you are audible, visible, both.
Okay. Visible also. Okay. My still very simple questions. What it's pretty clear to us what makes experience is likes and dislikes. My likes and dislikes. Then a role of words with corresponding images. You see, we are more in discussions and videos. We get these things frequently. These are all images. So my question is, first thing is, what is undigested experience? Undigested experience. Because that only keeps me running to next, to next, to next, to next. So role of experiences in understanding. We always somehow discard the accumulated experiences, but what about understanding? Is it at that moment? It appears to be, it may appear to be that. So certain topics are being discussed, dealt and discussed repeatedly based on experiences of individuals, including listening. So whether the understanding is like a saturated and super saturated solution that ultimately crystallizes and gives a false feeling of timelessness at that moment when this happens, if at all. So these are some simple questions. What are images? What is interference? Although Dinesh has covered a number of those subtle points, when we say, we take it for granted when JK said experiences or the past doesn't allow you to be in the present or see the present or the perception. Optical perception is one thing, and this was also discussed immediately after thought starts. So these are the things we have to be very clear. That's why till today we are discussing these points, because there is a lot of smoke in between, a lot of gray things in between, and we discuss as if we can see these things very clearly. So I'll not take much time because Adeen is also waiting and a lot of time has already been spent. So this is all what is the role of these images, which may ultimately, because say that this is psychological, this is physical, and this is thought-based, and this is all that. So this is all what I have to say right now. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, friends.
Adeen, please.
Yeah. So I wanted to inquire with everyone on the topic of absorption, which I was also thinking about today, and as it is related to the accumulated experiences which we have. So generally, when we are talking about awareness, it seems to be that an aware mind is not an absorbed mind. And Swamiji also gave the example of what happened in Thane. So where, if thought is, if there's a very strong emotion and then words and thought have a tendency to absorb the mind, then you are no longer aware of what you're doing, and the thought wants to express itself. So yeah, so this question of absorption is also important for me, um, because nowadays we have so many mediums of absorption, and we have the phone, and we don't live close to nature. So most of the things, like the mind is absorbed more or less. We are not doing much physical activity, so that body awareness is not there, or we are not looking at the trees, we are not outside, we are sitting either at home or in office. So so this question of unawareness or absorption, um, so when I'm listening to someone, I can either listen to that person, or if a thought is occurring in me, I can either listen to that thought or to the other person. I cannot listen to both. And the same thing is, if two people are talking at the same time, I cannot listen to both the people at the same time. Only one person I'm able to listen. So maybe that is a limitation of thought, limitation of the brain, that it can be aware of only one thought at a time, and not both the thoughts, so what is outside as well as what is inside at the same time. So there also the question of absorption comes, because if we are absorbed by the outer thoughts, and I don't make much of a distinction between the inner thoughts and the outer thoughts. So the phone is also an absorption, because it's all thought. TV is an absorption. We get absorbed in TV, and then we get absorbed in all these outer thoughts. We listen to some politician and speech, and or some leader, we get absorbed, mind gets absorbed in what they are saying, what that person is saying. So we are not aware at that moment. So thought, it seems to me, has a tendency of absorbing the mind, and we are unaware at that particular moment. So first thing, of course, then the question is, then these outer absorptions which we have, like the phone or the TV, I think without dropping it, at least to some extent, those outer absorptions, and seeing that it doesn't have much value, I don't know how we can be aware of what our inner feelings and mind is, to a certain extent. And also, yeah, so that's what I wanted to explore. Maybe others can give this input on absorption. And yeah, and the question of what Dinesh he also brought up regarding technical thought we have to use, and there's psychological thought, but technical thought doesn't absorb the mind, I feel. So at that moment, even when you are listening to someone, uh, you cannot be listen to two thoughts, but if you are listening to someone, that awareness can also be aware of the surroundings, your physical body, where you're sitting, and listen at the same time to that person without the mind getting absorbed in that particular moment. So in the class also, if we are sitting and listening to the teacher, we can still learn over there. And a technical thought also probably never gets absorbed, I feel. Even in today's world, in the office, we see that earlier there might have been jobs that you learn for 2 years, and then you just do repeated work for the rest of your life. Those jobs are very rare nowadays. You keep learning. If your mind gets absorbed, then you stop learning, and it becomes a problem also in the office, that this person is not learning, has lost the capacity to learn. So I think technical thought is used by perception, and it is still aware. It doesn't absorb the mind, unlike the psyche. So anyway, I'd like to explore this topic. Yeah, if anyone has some their own direct experiences or what they feel about this. I'd like to hear that.
Prasad sir, please. Prasad sir.
Namaste, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, for me, the topic may be profound, but my approach is quite simple. Krishnaji has made a distinction between functional thought and psychological thought. So, functionally, thought has a role. There is no doubt about it. From sending a rocket into the space to driving a car to your home, or even to know what your uncle likes or doesn't like for his lunch. All these things are functional. And in this area, there is no doubt about it that the thought has a very primary role. Then, what is psychological thought? Psychological thought is, Harshadji has elsewhere mentioned Bronowski. And Bronowski's comments about ascent of man through knowledge. Yes, through knowledge, there is progress on the material plane. You have new instruments for your material comfort and all that. But that doesn't give you progress at what we may call the moral plane. It doesn't make you a better human being. It doesn't give you compassion. It doesn't give you an aesthetic sense. All these things, knowledge doesn't give. Knowledge by itself doesn't give. And this type of psychological knowledge obstructs observation. That is also very clear. If I have a prejudice against you, I can't look at you. I can't listen to you. My listening is affected by my prejudice. There is no listening. I am only pretending to be attending, but otherwise I am not listening. That is because of my prejudice. In this area, I have one doubt. We are saying, we are making a distinction between digested experience and undigested experience. I really don't know what is this distinction between what is a digested experience, what is an undigested experience. For me, all experience is past. The love I received from my grandmother, that is past. She has passed away. And what remains is only my memory. Is it a digested experience or is it an undigested experience? Somebody has hurt me. I feel that insult. I remember that. Like I remember the affection of my grandmother, I remember this insult also I received from somebody. Which is digested, which is undigested. For me, both are of the same category. If I have forgotten something totally, that is a different matter. It is neither digested nor undigested, it is forgotten. But what is this digestion of experience and undigested experience? That I don't, for me, it is all past. What remains is, as Krishnaji has somewhere said, our fondness for our possessions, our memories, our attachments. These are the things which control our perception, our observation. So, if you are free from these things, that is your attachments, your memories, and your attachment to your possessions. If these things are, these are all on the psychological plane. These are not on the functional plane. So if we remember, if we are free from these things, we have clear observation. Our observation becomes clear when we are free of these things. And to be free of these things, what is required is only understanding. There is no exercise of will in this matter. If you understand that, because our life, now I am 80, at the age of 80, all the decades which have passed are like cinemas, which I have seen and finished. So we are left only with memories, sir. We live in memories. We live in the past. That is all. Once you are free of once you realize that, you are free of the past. When you are free of the past, you are a free human being. What is left is only the present moment. So your observation becomes free only when you become free of all these things, like memories, attachments, and all those things. That's all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Modak, please end it. Let it be digested or undigested. I don't care.
Thank you, everybody.